Hello, Coffee Cabana. So, I'm Ben Sturgess. I'm head of coffee at Overweek. One business, but I love the Overweek. We were punters here last year, actually. So just out of a show of hands, and it is bright standing here, how many of you were here last year? Third-ish, rough, that's great. Returning customers, that's good, that's good. And welcome to all the people. It was amazing last year. From the moment Deanna Rogers stepped on stage, I was just spellbound with the whole event. So thank you to Andy and Vikki for inviting us to speak this year and for also giving us free license to speak about what we're going to speak about today, which we'll tell you in a minute. Also thank you to Matt and the teams, Coffee Cabana and Silicon Beach teams for organising such an extraordinary event. And congratulations to you, you got out from behind your desk. Brilliant.
Okay, good morning. I'm Peter Stephen. Not the most flattering picture ever of me, but trust me, it isn't the worst. Although I think it's probably the biggest. We set up on the big screen one day. It's not surprising, given the nature of our clients, that we've settled on the subject for today. And if you haven't already guessed by our apocalyptic opening and the title slide, we are talking today about artificial intelligence, and we want to share our perspectives on what it's capable of today, its potential for the future, and how you as copywriters, or we as copywriters, can prevent it from taking our jobs sooner rather than later.
So we've got a few predictions for you to kick off with. Creative machines will become commonplace. Copywriters, you lot out there mostly, I guess, robots will be taking your jobs, machines will be taking your jobs, or we're working with a lot more machines. And while our 2029 vision might have seemed a little bit far-fetched and a little bit burning book stupid, the whole world of media is changing, and I think we've kind of realised that the power of computers is going to get, is really, really going to take over. So,
but who are we to be standing here telling you about that? Well, Glenn and I are immersed pretty much in the world of technology. We write for some of the biggest, most influential technology brands in the world. I forgot what I was going to say.
That's okay.
But it's great to have I've been practicing this all week, holding the TV remote. And when Matt handed Glenn the Britney Spears thing, I thought, damn, I'm going to be properless. Do you know what? I should have put my glasses.
A bit of comedy for you. Obviously, machines would be doing anything.
That's right. I remember now. Thank you. Of course I remember, yeah. So the label says B2B, but we're not just B2B, we're copywriters. We talk to humans, we talk to people, and we put people at the centre of everything that we write, everything that we create, and everything that we produce.
So before we get into the kind of meat of it, we're going to talk to you a little bit about what we've learned during the process of researching this topic. And let's start off with Stephen Hawking. Many commentators, many respected voices like Stephen Hawking are fearful of the future and what the uncontrolled rise of artificial intelligence means for humanity. That it's very, very impossible to predict either the harm or the upsides or the downsides of what it will actually do. Some of the things that Stephen Hawking's talked about in these books, we just don't know. And superintelligence or artificial human intelligence, or you might have heard of the point of singularity, this is coming. It could well happen in some of the people in this room. It could well happen in your lifetime. And it will be the point when machines gain consciousness, machines gain a will of their own and the ability to make decisions and act on those decisions. So when somebody like Elon Musk, who I'm sure you're aware of, one of the world's most influential entrepreneurs, pipes up, and innovative guys, he's responsible for putting Tesla cars on the road and building a factory in Las Vegas that's just massive. All about electric tech. When he pipes up and says it's one of the biggest threats to humanity, maybe we should listen. You know, he's again talking about another prediction for you. Before some of the fully autonomous self-driving vehicles that Elon Musk is trying to develop end up on our roads, there will be a fully autonomous copywriter, I suspect. Some of the commentators we've spoken to said we're looking at perhaps 15 or 20 years away from that being the case. You can come in, press a button, and it writes the copy according to the brief that he's plugged into it. So, you know, things are changing really, really fast. And I think one thing we've learned in this presentation is, as I've said, machines are becoming much more formidable than we kind of imagined when we started on this little journey. And there's also so much heat around AI. There's loads of investment coming into it. The potential is being, you know, realised in lots of different ways, and the level of investment has never been bigger. So let's try and put a definition around. So yeah, you could say that the fuse has been lit.
You could. Now, it's becoming commonplace and we're pretty much okay with it, but its commercial and physical application is still very much in the early stages. But when digital marketers worldwide ran a survey, we were quite surprised about the positive feedback that we're getting from people about AI. To the extent, I'm going to read these out, 61% said that AI is making the world a better place. Fine, okay, we don't disagree with that. 57% want an AI doctor for an eye exam. Now that's obviously not a procedure or an operation, that's just an exam. This is something I don't necessarily share. I wouldn't get in an autonomous car if you paid me. I don't particularly fancy the idea of sitting in the back drinking champagne on the way to work with no steering wheel and no driver. But 55% of people would put their trust in an autonomous car. So AI is winning the hearts and minds of people.
So what is this thing that we're becoming more comfortable with? Well, we picked possibly the loosest definition you could ever pick, but we like this one because it recognises the fact that as we move through history, the practice and the meaning of intelligence and artificial intelligence changes and evolves. So Larry Tesler here is actually a guy who was a computer scientist. He was one of the people who developed the cut and paste function. I'm not sure if that makes him a friend or a foe.
Friend. Definitely friend.
So if you say back in the 1700s, this would still be relevant. I think this definition. If you asked, say, a game of the time named chess, people were starting to play chess quite a lot. If you told someone then that a machine would be developed that would be able to beat anyone in the world at chess, they probably would have said preposterous.
They probably would have said burn the witch.
And they probably would have had a point because chess is a staggeringly complex mathematical game. That's the number of possible chess positions that there are on board. I don't think they're all possible in gameplay. That's only about 140 billion, but that is a big number. And trying to get a computer to kind of work all that out, well, it's happening now. One of the, sorry, I'm just drinking, that's going to try.
While Glenn's doing that, I'll just point out this is also equivalent to the number of atoms in the known measurable universe.
Well done, yes, Ramon.
I remember his, I'm just going to remember mine.
Big number. So it was in 1997 when a chess computer beat Garry Kasparov, who was a grandmaster at chess. It made headline news. You know, people were predicting then, this is nearly 20 years ago, that machines are going to take over the world. Fast forward to 2016, and enter onto the scene a computer called AlphaGo that was developed. It was really much the descendant of the chess computer, developed by the same IBM team. And again, the commentators were sceptical. I don't know if you know the game of Go. It's played on a 19 by 19 board. It's infinitely more complex than. There's like another 3 lots of rows of zeros after that. It's infinitely more complex than chess. So all the commentators were saying, no, there's never going to be a machine, not for another 10 years, that can outplay and out-strategize a player like Lee Sedol. He's a ninth Dan, and there's not that many of them in the world. And he's like one of the top 3 players of this game. But on the 15th of March last year, AlphaGo did in fact beat Lee Sedol 3 games to 1, best of 5, and he ended up in tears, and it was all very sad for him. But AlphaGo did it by doing some risky, audacious moves and some never-seen-before strategies that the computer had actually taught itself through endless hours of gameplay with itself. Something that us humans can't do. We can't split our minds into 2, unfortunately, and test each other.
But in fact, AlphaGo is now playing itself 24/7, and it's just getting better and better and better, and that's obviously something that Lee Sedol just doesn't have the capacity to do. But it's not just games that are changing. When we put this together, we spoke to Paul Kitcat, who writes quite a lot about AI, particularly in his article for The Drum. And he said that if the medical profession and if the legal profession can't come out of this unscathed, then what chance do copywriters have? AI is diagnosing disease, AI is answering legal questions. So it's quite poignant that he made the point that every professional industry touched by the digital revolution has been turned upside down and inside out by it.
And incidentally, Paul's also just written a novel, which I think has been published soon, called We Care For You. In it, he looks at robots caring for the elderly. So it's a kind of quid pro quo, where the robots are providing the much needed social care that society needs, but they're also learning from the elderly, people with arguably the most life experience. So it looks like quite an interesting read, that one. So, the world of copybots, which I'm sure you've encountered online in that moment when your online shopping experience is interrupted by a pop-up window. I personally find them fucking annoying. But they're not all fucking annoying. And this is, things like Alexa and Cortana as well, they're sort of using the same back-end engine. It's just sort of an input and an output, they recognise the response. Copybots are becoming, de rigueur. But they're not all annoying. Some of them have got really amazing potential for good. And Alison Darcy has come up with this robot idea, which is delivering CBT, which is cognitive behaviour therapy, which is a proven therapy for dealing with depression, anxiety, behavioural issues.
And problems.
Yeah. So, essentially, though, behind it, there's human copywriters who are writing the scripts. So when robot recognises something that you say, it checks in with you every day, it kind of asks you a question or provides an appropriate response. So is it really AI? I'm not sure. If you think of our definition, it's not sure the cutting-edge AI that we're sort of talking about today, but it's certainly a wonderful application of AI-type technologies today. So I thought I'd test it out, so I've sort of signed up for it. Unfortunately, it works through Facebook Messenger, which is a bit of a faff, but I thought I'd give it a test and see how it could recognise language when I pushed it a bit too far. I'm afraid I get a bit profane and a bit bored sometimes. So, the good thing about Robot is it does feel like it's listening. It's friendly, it's warm, it's chatty, and I think that's probably the thing that you want most from a counsellor, isn't it? Really, somebody who's not going to judge you whatever you say, and also, something that you actually feel is listening. And as the research from Alison's, the initial tryouts of this robot, people are quite happy once they get over the robot is as well as it's not particularly, it doesn't try and hide the fact that it's a machine. It sort of knows its limits, and it says if you need, more help, then you need to probably speak to a human, a professional. It kind of knows its limit. It doesn't kind of try and hide and try and pretend that you won't notice it's not a human.
But chatbots aren't really AI. This is an example of something that was produced by AI. A Google machine was fed limitless, countless texts, articles, film scores, journals. And through natural language processing, through a process called AI morphing, and having been given the first line and the final line, it completed the process and wrote this. Rishi, this is reassuringly shit, okay? but poetry is art, art is subjective, so there might be one or two of you here that find this quite interesting. But the point with artificial intelligence and the point with natural language processing is that machines are on the rise and they are getting better.
This is also the Google AI machine that when it was asked its views on morality and ethics, it replied, "I'm not in the mood for a philosophical debate," which I think is a computer speak for "fuck you." So the kind of thing that the Google AI was doing, which is what we would regard today as sort of the highest level of artificial intelligence, you know, the ways it was doing it through neural networks, that's kind of machine learning, and it's a limitless ability for machines to keep learning from themselves. So I've turned here to Nick Asprey. I don't know if you've come across the Sideways Dictionary. It's a wonderful set of analogies around lots of technological terms. And Nick's wonderful analogy is to think about Miles Davis, not Mozart, when you're thinking about machine learning. So learning to play Mozart is theoretically a mechanical task where you need to repeat the right notes in the right order. Learning to play improvisational jazz,
nice,
is about recognising the underlying patterns and rhythm, tempo, modes. And once you've mastered these patterns, you can play along to something that you've never heard before, and preferably wearing a turtleneck sweater.
Great.
So I think we have to concede that machines probably do have the edge in a few areas. So if you think about some of the things you talked about, natural language processing, with the Google AI turning lots of different texts into some kind of form of poetry, and just the ability to read the complete work. I don't know if anyone's read the complete works of Shakespeare since this slide's been up, but a computer could probably do that.
I think Andy's grandfather has.
Yeah. So machine learning as well, they are incredible like AlphaGo. They're incredibly good at testing itself and then getting better as a result, the kind of limitless capacity for that. Identifying patterns, a bit like our improvisational jazz. Once they've got the language, then they can just get better and better and better. Locating knowledge, I'll be the first one to admit that us humans are fundamentally flawed when it comes to locating knowledge. And remembering it, and things called selective memory, selective hearing, that kind of thing, which is a bit of a problem for some creatives because to an extent your imagination is somewhat limited by what you can actually remember and recall. Bias. I'm sorry to say, but copywriters are some of the most biased people when it comes to judging your own copy, judging other people's copy. We do have a strong cognitive bias, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But computers, through their access to things like big data and just a huge sampling that they can do, they can even out results and eliminate some bias. And of course, robots don't do fag breaks. They don't need sleep. They don't really have to worry about all these things that we do. They can just carry on limitlessly. The Pac-Man in the monsters chasing the Pac-Man until they get their target. So we wanted to talk to some of the companies who are already putting what we regard as this sort of cutting edge end of artificial intelligence into practice in terms of language and writing. So Victoria Pepiat here is a founder of a company called Phrasey. And they're using human-sounding, machine-optimized algorithms to improve email marketing. So they guarantee more opens, more conversions, more click-throughs. It was really interesting chatting to them about what they see for the future. And I think we have reached the point where copywriters can no longer, it's sort of an untenable position for us to just rely on our own. Well, we think the copy that we're writing is doing the job that it's supposed to do. We're not really sure. We haven't really tested it. We haven't really experimented with it. We haven't really learned from it. I think, it's something that we definitely need to get over, and as Victoria says there, we need to be more willing to be proved wrong about our writing.
So, well, what does that leave? That leaves, we need to ask ourselves, what are we good at? Well, language is a really rich and it's a wonderfully complex thing. Fortunately for humans, because we have a greater comprehension and understanding of it than machines currently do. And this is a list of things that, this is a list of strengths, I should say, that human copywriters have over machines. In fact, when the MIT's most powerful AI machine, Concept.net, took an average IQ test, it attained a level equal to a 4-year-old, was it? I think it was a 4-year-old human. It performed brilliantly in vocabulary, but when it came to something like comprehension, which clearly needs something like an imagination and dreaming, when it was asked the question, why do people shake hands, unlike a 4-year-old who would understand where that question is going, it was only able to answer the question in front of it. Epileptic fit was the answer. People shake hands because they're having an epileptic fit, whereas a child would have known where that question was going, would have talked about a greeting, a show of friendship, or whatever. So jobs that involve things like abstract thought, for the moment, are pretty safe, and so are creatives aged 4 and over. But in the meantime, it's up to us to persuade our clients, but not only our clients and our creative directors, that we are worth, our skills are worth, they outweigh the economy of automated content, and that's something that's incumbent on us to take care of.
So, we thought we'd take this moment to just take the piss out of a robot.
Now, everything doesn't go exactly the way it's supposed to.
Clearly, they're not very good at shelf stacking. Well, I think we could establish that. But this is the thing about all of the human, where the copywriters we should be excelling. How much are we using that kind of stuff on a daily basis? How much are we really, focusing on the things that we're really good at, and less so on the things that the machines can help us with?
So machines are great with logic, and humans are way better with emotion. So there's a battle. We have this battle on our hands. Now, Glenn and I are immersed in this technological world, and we write for clients whose customers make pretty big purchases. We're talking about millions, if not tens of millions of pounds or dollars, single purchases. Now, these are purchases made by people, but they are generally based on logic. When you're spending that amount of money and it's not your money, and you're investing in something that's going to automate a process, or it's going to save time, or it's going to reduce the cost per transaction, for example, if you're talking about a bank. We're talking computing products here. Then these purchases are made clearly on logic. But the people that we're writing to are exactly that. They're people, and they have opinions, they have pain points, they have challenges. They have kids they've got to get to school, they've got dogs that they need to walk. So when you appeal to their emotion, they will, with a logical argument, when you build a logical argument and express it and appeal to their emotion, that is what will make them respond much stronger.
So we can't rage against machines, really, I don't think. We can't afford to continue to be Luddites. This stuff is being developed, whether we like it or not, in a way. So I think it's incumbent on us all to try and understand it more, to try and embrace it, and to see how it can improve who we are and how we write.
Yeah, a great example of man and machine working in harmony, if you like, is if you imagine the giant code-breaking machine that they built for the guys at Bletchley Park, or the guys at Bletchley Park built during the Second World War to help them break the Enigma codes. Now, the machine, it was called the bomb, it couldn't break the code itself, it could only recognise patterns. It was up to the mathematicians to use their particular skills to actually finish breaking the code. So that is a great example of man and machine, we think, working in harmony in the context of what we're talking about here today. So don't try and smash the looms, work with it.
So we thought we'd turn to a bit of our founding father's wisdom, the eminently quotable David Ogilvy. David was a great believer in testing.
Yeah, Ogilvy is an agency that was built by a copywriter, and thank God it was for us, because he's an eminently quotable man and his influence is around us all day, pretty much every day. And he understood that if you know who you're writing to, then you will be more effective. So testing is the lifeblood of all copy or of all advertising. And we've already talked about machines being faster and more accurate at locating data and I/O testing. So let the machines do the testing and let us concentrate on building more compelling copy.
Another one of David's tenets was around the idea of a headline. So his thought was, by the time people have read your headline, you've spent 80 cents of your dollar, or 80 pence in your pound. And he's right. I mean, we all write copy that we want people to read, ultimately, and they need to get to that now. In today's time-poor and information onslaught kind of world, if your headline's not doing the job that you think it's doing, then people aren't probably going to get to the bit that you've spent most of the time on, which is your copy. So, but there is a kind of an interesting, I think we've reached a point where there's an interesting flip on this.
Yeah, that's right. If Phrasey, where we spoke about Victoria and Parry earlier on, if Phrasey claims to beat human copywriters 95% of the time in conversions and click-throughs on headlines and email subject lines, and a lot of us here, we're writing EDMs and we're writing headlines. Let's flip this on its head and let's make this 80-20 rule 20 cents of your dollar on the headline and invest 80 cents of your dollar in the body copy so that we can produce more compelling body copy and leave machines like Phrasey to do the other stuff. My best thinking comes from comedy. I don't know about. It makes me laugh anyway most of the time, and I do it to amuse myself. The best ideas do come as jokes and make your thinking as funny as possible. We're not necessarily saying make your writing as funny as possible. We're talking about your thinking. Now, David Ogilvy says that you should be exercising this part of your brain more often or all the time. But how do you exercise your funny thinking? How do you make your thinking funny on demand? Well, here's a little exercise. Hi. Just sneak in, no one will notice. How can you make your thinking funny on demand? And here's an idea for a little exercise, and that is, if you maybe look at the people next to you, look at the people around you, perhaps people at work, perhaps people that you work with, you work for, maybe some of your customers, and give them nicknames in your head. Just think about a nickname for them. Yeah, you're getting it straight away, aren't you? Nicknames come from humour. You'll pick a particular character or a trait or a particular personality just to make yourself laugh. And that, because nicknames themselves on their own are brilliantly creative and they come from funny thinking.
Here's his hi, it's Pete, because that's how he answers the phone.
Hi, it's Pete. I mean, communications, people need to know who they're through to, right? Hello? Is that Pete? Just cut it out.
So what?
And of course, what's the...
Oh, we've forgotten our gag.
We had the classic, what's the secret of great comedy gag? Type. We've blown it. Shall we do it? And of course, we all know what the secret of great comedy is, don't we? We all know what the secret of great comedy is, don't we? So,
time, yes. We didn't get it right once in rehearsal, so the chances of us getting it right now were 0. So, we're going to talk to you a little bit more about what makes you, copywriters, such a hero. Think about the things that you're really good at. These are actually, Ogilvy values, but we feel that there's a lot in them in terms of what we do on a daily basis. And like I said, David was a copywriter, so, curiosity. You take curiosity.
Okay, these are human traits. These are not something that machines can be programmed to live by. These are what humans can live by. We go curiosity, we go courage, we go generosity. So let's look at curiosity a little bit. Machines can't ask questions. They can only look at the facts that they have put in front of them, and they can only pick up the data or mine the data that we ask them to mine. So they can't be curious and go off and look at secondary questions and things like that. Now, I know a young advertising art director. He works for a top agency in London. And for the last 20 years, he's here today, he knows who he is, I'm not going to name him. I don't want to embarrass him. But for the last 20 years, he has driven me fucking mad by asking, why? Why are you wearing that colour shirt? Why the fuck are you wearing those colour shoes? How did the war start? Why did the war start? Why this? Why? But at 24, he's working for one of London's top agencies as an advertising art director. It's what he wants to do. So being curious hasn't done him any harm at all. And what's it Rory says?
Yeah, it's Rory Sutherland, who's the chairman of Ogilvy Mather. It's his like minimum requirement for getting a job in advertising. No curiosity, no job. I mean, can you imagine employing a copywriter with no curiosity?
Why?
So be courageous, be brave. Andy was tweeting this week about being rule breakers and breaking the rules. Don't accept the brief. Challenge the brief. We don't have to kind of follow slavishly what people tell us to do all the time. You can, try something different. Try writing in a style that you've not written before. Try doing free writing. I was talking to Ben last night about, getting up in the morning and just blurting out 750 words without thinking about it. It's a very liberating experience. We're masters of words, and we should be pushing ourselves all the time to be a bit braver. One way of doing that might be 1-minute briefs. I don't know if you're aware of them, how many of you already do it. There's in fact an OMB live event coming up on the 2nd of November, I think. So, take part. I think Vikki might even be speaking at it, actually. So do take part in this kind of stuff, and push yourself to do this stuff. Be a bit braver, be more courageous.
And be generous, be a generous colleague, be a generous writer, be a generous person. And what we mean by being generous is sharing your experiences, because when you share your experiences and your skills with people, they will reciprocate and share theirs back with you. And we think that there's no better environment to do that than a social environment, something like we did last night over a couple of drinks. Copywriters Unite is something that happens regularly. I'm not sure when the next one is, but I know that's something that Vikki... Okay, November the 28th, that'll be my 25th wedding anniversary, so I'll be there. I don't think her husband would approve, actually, so it's complicated. But in a social environment like that... Sorry, was that awkward?
I don't know, I wasn't sure if you finished.
I was just saying...
You started talking about your ex, I thought it's time to move on.
When it's in a social environment, stuff like this doesn't feel like work. And sharing your experiences with others will help you yourself become a better copywriter. Now finished.
So we don't need to be rude. We're sure you're not lazy. We're sure you're all very conscientious and work really hard at your craft and your skills. And that stuff is really important. It's going to be much more important as we enter the brave new world of machine-driven and copywriting and creative machines. So
I'll go with give a shit, all right? But what we mean by this is like give a shit about your clients and give a shit about their customers. Give a shit about your clients' products and the features and what difference that makes to their lives. Because when you passionately give a shit about that, that will come through in your writing. It will naturally come through in your writing. And giving a shit is not something a computer can do.
Be asked. Doug Kessler, fantastic guy for Velocity Partners, recently said in a blog post, get off your bum, go out and learn something. He's quite right. You're doing that today. I'm looking around. I can't see any robots in the audience, although it's incredibly bright here, so they could well be.
The next point says be more Indiana Jones. It should actually say be less Indiana Jones. There's a scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where he's explaining to his class that archaeology is the search for fact, and he underlines that. And he says, if you're looking for truth, then go join the philosophy course down the corridor. Machines and AI will search for fact. It will deal with fact. But if you are writing to a human truth, you will get a greater response from your audience. The fact is, I'm wearing purple shoes today. Fact, okay? But what's the truth behind that? The truth is that Matt, Andy and I are having a show-off. I'm saying that, but if you write to a truth, and not to a fact, you will be a more effective copywriter.
And there's a lot of content out there, a lot of yada, 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 a lot of the obvious dressed up as the profound, and, guilty, sometimes responsible for creating some of this stuff. But can we try and stop doing it, please? Because it's digital landfill. So, this wouldn't be an Ogilvy presentation without a picture and a quote from our dear chairman, Rory, who is just a huge brain. And he replied really, really late, like Monday, when we've just finalised this. And of course, he absolutely fucking nailed it. And we had to put it as the conclusion to our presentation. So in typically contrarian fashion, Rory has kind of turned AI on its head and said, actually, it's more about augmented imagination. It's more, today, his hope is that we're going to use machines and it's going to be a beautiful symbiosis, where they help us uncover new possibilities and new connections that we just hadn't thought of before. So, yeah, there you go, that's Rory for you. Nailed it. So you, 2.0, augmented imagination is whatever hasn't been done yet. We've talked a lot about how these machines are coming and they're coming fast. It is happening. We've made you hopefully a little bit more aware of some of the things. We've kind of scratched the surface of it, really. Our knowledge is still limited. But we're going to be working with companies like Phrasey more and more, I think, in the future, and trying to focus on what the machine can do well and what we can do well as humans, all the human connections, the humour, and everything like that. So, be human, be original, and with AI, be a 2.0 version of yourself.
So that's us pretty much done. I would see that's the shirt I should have worn with these shoes. Isn't it?
Oh, look at it. Too late for fashion now.
Do follow us
on Twitter.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank all the people back at the Barns in Sheer that helped us put the presentation together from a stylistic, aesthetic and technical point of view. I want to thank all the people that we spoke to in preparation for this, whose opinions have helped to mould ours. And I'd also like to thank all of you, or we would like to thank all of you, for A, being here, B, listening to us, but most importantly, for giving a shit about words. Do follow us on Twitter. Thanks very much indeed.